Hello and welcome to today's video. This time we're taking a look at 3 recent releases by USA publisher Stark House Press. So sit back, relax, and let's get to it. So we'll start off with a Sherlock Holmes notebook, a cornucopia of Sherlockania by Gary Lovisi. So in this book, published as part of the Stark House reference series, author and collector Gary Lovisi shares his incredible knowledge of Sherlock Holmes through a series of essays where he touches on all aspects of the great detective. There are chapters on virtually every aspect of Holmes in print, starting with a very thorough look at the Holmes pastiches. These are where other authors, not Conan Doyle, have written their own Holmes stories, starting with the very earliest pastiches after Conan Doyle had passed away through to the publication in 1974 of the highly successful The 7% Solution by Nicholas Meyer, which also went on to become a hit film. I hadn't realised that this was so influential, and as the copyright lapsed on the Conan Doyle original stories and characters, the floodgates were truly opened and all manner of new Holmes stories started appearing. Gary then covers all the major pastiches published in the last 50 years, some of which I recognised, but there were many I'd never heard of. Some of these sound really interesting, and I've made a note of some of the titles to track down. I had no idea that there was an Inspector Lestrade spin-off series as well. He was also one of the more interesting characters in the original stories. This section is finished off with a really comprehensive bibliography of all the Holmes pastiches, including the author's own book, Sherlock Holmes in the Loss of the British Bark Sophie Anderson. Next up is a detailed look at both editions of The Misadventures of Sherlock Holmes. There was an edition from 1944, edited by crime author Ellery Queen. This was suppressed by the Conan Doyle estate and is a real rarity today. There was also a much more common, but still scarce, UK paperback edition from 1989, which contains a completely different selection of stories, including one by John Lennon of Beatles fame. Next comes a look at the Conan Doyle books published in these very early Touchnitch editions, some of the earliest paperback books ever printed. I do have a couple of these, sadly not any of the Conan Doyle ones though. These are super scarce to find and rarely turn up in great condition. Amazingly, Gary says there are 42 Conan Doyles to track down, 10 of which are Holmes volumes, a supremely tough challenge. The Sherlock Holmes library, as published by noted author, publisher and retailer Otto Penzler, are looked at next. The 9 books in this series from 93 to 94 reprint key works about Holmes or indeed Conan Doyle and are considered essential for any collector of Holmes. The Lost World and Professor Challenger stories are next under the spotlight, with the numerous English language editions all listed in publication order. I can confirm that there were 3 pan editions of The Lost World from 1949, 1950 and 1952, and they do share the same cover with just minor revisions to the titling. Birdie Edwards and The Valley of Fear are next under the spotlight in a fascinating section looking at this novel, which the author surmises might be the world's first hardball detective story. This is then followed by a look at the movie, The Molly Maguires, which is the true story of the Mimissa Valley in the mining area of Pennsylvania. This is the American segment from The Valley of Fear, which many fans find uninteresting. However, it's all based on actual events. A brief look then at the legendary Sherlockonian collector John Bennett Shaw is followed by Sherlockonian Odds and Ends. This is like a supplemental section to the author's earlier works, Relics of Sherlock Holmes from 1988, taking in more recent film, TV and plays and pastiches that have come the author's way. In the second of these sections, the author recounts his earlier correspondence with Flashman author George MacDonald Fraser. He recalls asking the author about a tie-in of the 2 characters which first saw print in a British newspaper, never to be reprinted until Flashman and the Tiger. Also recalled in detail is the 1987 Broadway play Sherlock's Last Case, starring Frank Langella as Holmes. How wonderful to have been able to see this at the time, although Langella's portrayal seems a world away from the original novels. The Holmes novels in paperback are next under the spotlight, with the early UK and USA editions all listed alongside the major pastiches. This is followed by a look at the rare Mexican Sherlock Holmes series from 1952 and running for 24 issues, each one translating a short story into Spanish. These are now very scarce collectibles, but worth tracking down, as the covers depict the likenesses of Basil Rathbone and Nigel Bruce. The German dime novels from 1907 are next to come under the spotlight. Who would have believed that there were 230 issues in total of this rare German language offering? The handful of letters between Robert Louis Stevenson and Conan Doyle are looked at next. It seems both authors were big fans of each other's works. These letters have been collected in the 900 plus page The Letters of Robert Louis Stevenson, itself a bit of a rarity, but thankfully all of these are reprinted in this volume to save you looking. The Conan Doyle British Turf cigarette cards are next under the spotlight, a beautiful card set of 25 illustrations featuring mainly Holmes characters from 1923. Although tough to find, the originals have been reprinted 3 times, and these and details of every card are listed. This is followed by a look at the rare Spanish Sherlock Holmes chocolate trade cards, beautiful but virtually impossible to find today. Finally, a look in detail at a couple more pastiches round out this volume. In summary then, it truly is a cornucopia of Sherlock Holmes and a very entertaining read. Casual fans and hardcore collectors are sure to find plenty of interest here, with Gary's usual high standards and attention to detail clearly evident throughout. Highly recommended. A Ticket to Hell and Hell Can Wait by Harry Whittington. This recent release from Stark House has been published under their Noir Classics imprint. It features 2 classic and previously long out of print titles from prolific author Harry Whittington. Whittington was known as the king of paperbacks and wrote over 170 in his lifetime under 20 different pen names. He also had major success as author Ashley Carter with historical stories set in the Deep South. These 2 are both crime titles though, published originally as Fawcett Gold Medals back in 1959 and 1960. Now, I don't want to give too much away with the stories and the plots, but here's the intro to both books. A Ticket to Hell. When Rick pulls into the New Mexico motel, he isn't looking for company, he's supposed to meet someone. He doesn't know who or when, but he knows that he can't afford to get involved with anyone else's problems. But while he waits, he watches the couple across the court. The husband is too handsome for his own good, and the woman's pretty easy on the eyes as well. When Rick sees the man step outside his room, turn off the gas, turn it on again, then leave, he knows that something is not right. He discovers the wife unconscious, her body staged to look like a suicide. Rick doesn't want to get involved, but now he's got a desperate woman on his hands and more trouble than he needs. Hell Can Wait. Greg Morris is twisted up with hate. He and his new wife have been driving to Rainbow Lake when they are hit by another car. And not just any car, but one driven by rich and powerful Sol Coons. His wife dead, Morris lies in his hospital bed, expecting justice to prevail. Clearly Coons was in the wrong. A local lawyer wants to prove it, but by the end of the trial, Coons has turned it around so that the accident appears to be entirely Morris's fault, and Coons the injured party. Now Morris is back in town, sick with hate and plotting his revenge. But how do you hurt a man who owns the whole town and everyone in it? You find his one weak spot, his wife. Now this Stark House Press edition opens with an entertaining introduction by Tom Simon from the Paperback Warrior website and podcast. Tom looks at Whittington's life by visiting the town he grew up in, Ocala. He visits the local second-hand bookstore as well as the local library and asks if they have any Whittingtons in stock. He was met with blank faces. They'd never heard of him. After a bit of research, he did track down the author's various residences, none of them still standing, while he'd lived there, and also his grave. Whittington passed away in 1989. Tom says that A Ticket to Hell is the best of this pairing, but both are excellent. I actually preferred Hell Can Wait. Revenge novels have always been a favourite of mine within this genre, and this one doesn't disappoint. As I've found in the past reading Whittington, the action really doesn't let up, and you are compelled to keep going until you reach the end and can take a deep breath. The book itself is really well produced, easy on the eye with text just the right size. These are not long novels, just 120 pages each, so you can finish them in a couple of sessions. This is exactly what I did on holiday. There are 3 other Whittington doubles and even a treble that Stark House have published, so if you like this one, you'll want to give the others a try. They are uniform with this edition and look great. The covers are really something and capture the feel of those 50s and 60s classics. Finally, the book is rounded out by a comprehensive Harry Whittington bibliography, which is super useful to see all the books written under his many, many pseudonyms. Lone Wolf 1, Night Raider, and Lone Wolf 2, Bay Prowler, by Barry N. Malzberg. The final book from Stark House that we are taking a look at today is another double bill, this time by author Barry N. Malzberg. Now, Barry Malzberg is another very prolific author who has penned stories in crime, men's adventure, science fiction, erotica, and TV and movie tie-ins. There were 14 books in the Lone Wolf series written under the Mike Barry pseudonym, originally published in the USA by Berkeley between 1973 and 1975. These are pretty tough to find today and virtually impossible here in the UK. Not surprising, as the author notes that the first volume selling 70,000 copies and then they gradually dropped off as the series went on. The fact that Malzberg was able to knock them out so quickly is truly amazing. 10 novels in 10 months was the task. The series follows our protagonist, Burt Wolfe, a Vietnam veteran and now narcotics officer for the NYPD. He finds his girlfriend who's OD'd on drugs, which sets him on a course of vengeance and revenge against drug dealers. You can feel the mid-70s vibe here and the influence of the Don Pendleton Executioner series, Mac Bolan and Richard Stark novels, even the first Death Wish and Dirty Harry movies. The volume contains the first 2 instalments of Malzberg's Lone Wolf series, Lone Wolf 1, Night Raider, which is setting up the series in New York, and then Lone Wolf 2, Bay Prowler, which continues the action in San Francisco. So here's the introduction to the 2 books. The Lone Wolf. Burt Wolfe, after 2 years in the army, most of it in Vietnam, had been entitled to something nice for his trouble, so they had made him a narco, a New York City narcotics cop with the freedom and the plain clothes and the graft money. But something had happened to this Wolf overseas. He had gone crazy. He had become a man of integrity. Eventually he tried to bust an informant, and they knew that they would have to do something about this wild man. When Wolfe saw his fiancée OD'd out on the floor, he thought that he might go mad on the spot, but quite strangely he did not. Wolfe went straight home and discarded everything except his gun and a spare. They were hardly the equipment he would need, but they were a beginning. By midsummer, he had the beginning of an operation in his mind. The rest he would have to play by ear. Wolfe hit the streets to kill a lot of people. First strike, the drug network in New York, and then San Francisco. He is beyond forgiveness or vengeance now. He is the Lone Wolf. Now, these really are a great read and don't feel rushed. The violence is on point and feels justified. Pretty quick reads again. Both books and the intros come in at just over 220 pages. This is fine though, as the subject matter hardly lends itself to anything lengthier, and it really doesn't need to. This is a revenge series which doesn't hold back and is bold and straight to the point, and I just loved it. The book also contains a new prologue, introduction and afterword by the author, written especially for the series' re-release, and this looks at how the series came about and vigilantism in general. At present, 2 additional volumes are available, each one containing the next 2 instalments in the series. Once again, a comprehensive bibliography is available detailing all of Malzberg's massive output. I would heartily recommend a visit to the Stark House Press website. Here you can find out about all the forthcoming releases, their back catalogue, and of course order from them directly. The site is broken down and searchable by author, genre and imprint. There is quite a bit to see in the Black Gap books section, where you can find reprints of single title books. All books mentioned in this video can of course be ordered through the links in the description below. My thanks to Stark House Press for supplying these copies for review. So there you go, I hope you've enjoyed looking through those 3 books today. If you have, do please give the video a thumbs up, and do please hit the subscribe button if you've not already for regular vintage paperback content. Thank you very much for watching today, and I look forward to seeing you again very soon. Bye.